J.R. Cash was born February 26, 1932 in Kingsland, Arkansas. Many of you know him today as Johnny Cash. Growing up, he had a humble life, very different from what most of us know. In the early 30s, he was moved from his birth home, a small shack in Kingsland, to a smaller home in Dyess, Arkansas, which was at the height of the Great Depression, was President Roosevelt's response to the economic issues we were having at that time. From the age of 5, he was learning to he was picking cotton in the fields with his family, just like his brothers before him and his eldest sister before them. It was during this time period that his mother, Carrie, who I think is pictured, Carrie Cash is actually the one who's right at the edge of that middle picture. She taught him to sing gospel from a small hymnal called Heavenly Highway Hymns. It was during this time period, that one of his earliest and greatest musical writings, 5 Feet High and Rising, was inspired by the 1937 flooding of the Mississippi River. It was during that flood that the cotton and all of the crops were killed. It was problems like this that plagued the Cash family all the way until '44, when Cash's older brother Jack was killed when he fell on a head saw trying to cut wood to earn money to help the family just get by. Jack is pictured next to a young J.R. in the far right picture on the top. He's the far right. It was out of this tragic loss to the Cash family that inspired John's song, I Still Miss Someone, which was, even though the words say, I hope, does she wish she were sorry for leaving what we had begun, the reality behind the message was that he still missed his older brother, who was his closest friend and companion through his early years dealing with an alcoholic father. It was out of Jack's death that John decided during his middle years that he would leave the family to go join the Air Force. It was in 1950 that he enlisted in his second week. Sergeant John R. Cash, pictured in the far right at the top, would write the song Folsom Prison Blues, which was inspired by watching a prison video about Folsom Prison. About a month after his discharge in 1953, Cash would marry his then month-long girlfriend, Vivian Liberto, who is pictured, she's in the far, this is Vivian, his first wife, who in '66 would divorce him after John would fall into trouble with his bandmates and would be arrested multiple times, as is depicted by his mugshot taken in 1954. It was around 1960 that Cash would also meet for the first, time go to rehab. Not the last of 3 times, but actually I take that back, that was 67. But it was in the 50s that he fell into drugs, and then right around that same time he'd meet his second wife, June Carter, who's really pictured in just about every one of these pictures. She was the love of his life and would help him write the song that most of you have probably heard, Ring of Fire, in 1963. after multiple attempts by John to propose to her and her say no. It was during these rough time period between the 54 when he married Vivian to 66 when she divorced him that John would write great songs like I Walk the Line, Cry, 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 and Home with the Blues. On January 13th, 1969, John would play at Folsom Prison and create one of his second most iconic albums, Live at Folsom. And it was on the tour bus that night after the concert that he would propose to June for the 39th time, say no, only after having been told that you don't tell a girl that you love her because you had a bad dream. The following night, John would propose to her for the 40th time and last time at a concert live in Toronto, Canada, in front of 2,000 people that he would propose to her, and she finally said yes, which would spark a 33-year marriage, of an inseparable marriage, that when they were married March 1st, 1969. During these 32 years of marriage, John and June would grow old together, writing songs, singing, performing together, and during this time period that John wrote his last series of albums, The American Recordings. Many of these songs you've probably heard if you play video games like Call of Duty or Battlefield games. Songs like Won't Back Down, Ain't No Grave Can Hold My Body Down, God's Gonna Cut You Down, and most famously, Hurt. As the years grew by, as some of these pictures show, his health and June's declined following years of battling addiction between cocaine, heroin, pills, and multiple other drugs. It was in February of 2003 that June would pass away after following complications from heart surgery after dealing with her own addictions to prescription painkillers. John would die 3 months later in April of what most people would say is a broken heart. I know this presentation probably hasn't been the best in the world, but most people don't realize behind the man in black, behind the infamous junkie and cowboy rebel, there was a man in there who had feelings just like every one of us. I personally don't know John or June as Johnny Cash or June Carter. To me, they are still the J.R. Cash that grew up in Kingsland, Arkansas, then Diaz. And Junie, who would make her own story during her 73 plus years of singing and dancing, making everyone's life happy. Now, after hearing all this, I wanted you all to see a video. I'm sure you've seen it before on YouTube, but after hearing just this little snippet about John and June, I think it might touch home a little more. Would you cut that link?